Well, we continue with our discussion with our correspondent Sias in Johannesburg, and we're also pleased to be joined by Darren Kyeyune, a sports writer and analyst from Uganda. Gentlemen, once again, welcome to Sports Scene. And since we're talking athletics, I'm going to run into this next question. We start with you, Darren. We saw countries like Morocco, the Netherlands, and Norway eat into East Africa's medals at the Tokyo 2020. How do you expect Kenya, Uganda, and Ethiopia to react next year?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I think Uganda, Kenya, and Ethiopia would just only hope to build from the amount of success they achieved last year. It will require a bit of consistency over a period of just about 8 to 9 months because we are just about 6 months away from the big championships in Oregon, USA. And of course, if you pick some of the major sporting events like the men's 3,000 meter steeplechase or the women's steeplechase, perhaps Kenya would love to get the stronghold back in the 7.5 lap distance over the water barriers, especially in the men's side where they just couldn't get the gold medal that went to Sifian El Bakali, the Moroccan. On the women's side, Peroth Chemtai surprising that stellar field that had the likes of Heaven Kieng and the world record holder who is Beatrice Chepkoech from Kenya. I think next year these are some of the areas that Kenya would love to work on and try to see that they can rekindle their gold in the event because, as many would say, it's an event that has belonged to them for quite a number of years. On the other side, the men's 10,000 meter title, where Joshua Cheptegei would hopefully love to defend it and perhaps send another message to Barega that he only perhaps nicked it and perhaps he wasn't the favorite when they tussled it out over the 25 laps at the Olympic Games in Tokyo.
All right, Darren, well said, well said. Let's now bring in Sias back into the conversation. Sias, thank you for standing by. Now, South Africa won no medals in track and field, none, zero, zilch at the Tokyo 2020, and having won 4, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 at Rio 2016. What happened there, Sias?
Richard, thanks for rubbing salt into the wounds. I appreciate that. But it can only be described as a disaster. I think the last time South Africa failed to get a medal in the track and field was 1992, the first time since readmission to international sport. So it was a disaster. We know Livu Manyonga was not there. He's busy fighting his demons. Wherever he may be at this point, he is far from where he should be in terms of long jump. Sunette Viljoen is focusing on cricket. She's trying to make the South African World Cup squad for the World Cup next year in New Zealand. And then you think of Rushwell Samai, so much promise. He could not deliver in the long jump. He fell away. The big hope, of course, was Wade van Niekerk. After that incredible performance that captured the imagination of the world in Rio, he has struggled with a knee injury. He hasn't been able to find fitness. The lockdown hasn't helped. He's also changed coaches. He now lives in the United States. All of those things led to what was quite a weird performance from him in that semi-final where he was slow out of the blocks and just couldn't find any rhythm, any pace, and it cost him dearly. I think the one sort of glimmer of hope has been Akani Simbine. Yes, he did not medal, but it's back-to-back finals for the former African fastest man. He's a guy who is so close to getting onto that podium, and at the World Champs next year, he'll be one of the guys that has a point to prove. Almost a last chance saloon for him. Gift Leoklelo, he had a hamstring injury, looked so promising in his 100 meters, but in general hasn't been a good Olympics for South Africa. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot of lessons need to be taken out of this, but there is still a lot of talent. And right now, all we can put it down to is a lack of preparation and finesse at Tokyo and on the biggest stage at the worst possible time.
Well, compelling points that you've made there, CS, and thanks for bringing all of that there to light. We expect great things from South Africa. They have so much potential. Now, Darren, thanks for sticking around. Darren, I want to bring you back into this conversation. It's right back to you, Darren. Now, this has been a great year for Uganda in distance running. Why is this happening at this time, and what can the rest of Africa learn from Uganda?
Perhaps we are living in an era where we are gifted with talent and talent that is dominating the global athletics scene. I think the investment by managers of the top athletes in the neighboring East African countries of Ethiopia and Kenya has gone on to reap fruit for the Ugandan athletes, on the other hand, as well as the country at large. because I will tell you that the likes of Geoffrey Kamworor of Kenya or Eliud Kipchoge do share the same training program with Joshua Cheptegei of Uganda and Stephen Kiprotich or any other marathoner. Case in point, Victor Kiplangat, who will become perhaps a case study in marathon running if he does continue with the trajectory he's had. This is because all these athletes I'm mentioning, despite having a border in between, they are managed by the same management group. And the fact that you have these athletes managed by the same people, you also have some talent which is actually managed by Italians who also manage the female marathoners from Kenya, the likes of Jacob Kiplimo here, who does share managers with other athletes from Kenya. That has put Uganda's talent up in the limelight, and eventually some of these athletes are just gifted and only needed a global touch to become what they are today. As we speak, Uganda managed to have its best Olympic Games ever, winning 2 gold medals, and perhaps could have been better had Joshua Cheptegei kicked much earlier or pulled the field a little closer in the 25-lap final at the Olympic Games.
Wow, wow. Uganda definitely on that all-important next level. And finally, Sias, you get my final question. One more question, if you would indulge me. The case of Caster Semenya dragged on and on this year. What can we expect? And can we expect to see a resolution? And does this great African champion plan to return to competition in 2022? From your perspective, how do you see it, Sias?
It remains to be seen what the next step is for Caster Semenya and how successful she will be. She is awaiting on the European Court for Human Rights, but that hearing is only set to take place in France next year, so it could be some time. She's vowed to fight on, though. She admits, though, that she needs to raise funds in excess of $1 million to continue this fight. And she wrote in the New York Times earlier this week just how she felt. And if you give me a chance, the news of the ruling shattered me. More than that, I felt indignant. As a woman, I should be in control of my own body. Why should I have to take hormone-altering substances just so I can compete in my chosen profession? So she's obviously still hurting from this whole thing. It's not clear if she will return to the track anytime. This is a major, major ruling, and it's probably her last chance to convince World Athletics to change their DSD regulations. It doesn't look good at the moment. She's going to have to raise a lot of money to continue this fight and still wait for that outcome. So we'll have to wait and see. But for now, Caster's going to enjoy the festive season with her child at home and her partner. She's really enjoying being a parent, but she has vowed to fight on. And she's not just fighting for herself, she's fighting for many other women who are in a similar situation.
Yes, indeed. Yes, please. She's hurting. We're hurting. Athletics is hurting. We certainly wish Caster Semenya the best. Well, gentlemen, we've kickstarted a very, very important conversation, and you can bet we'll be following it closely with a great deal of interest here on Sports Scene, not just in athletics, but the events, the characters, everything athletics. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time.